Hey, what's up? What's happening? I brought my dear father that $50 D3. One thing that he said he wanted the most, which I had no idea he desperately wanted a D3, but I mean anybody with any intelligence wants a D3. Anybody, because it's such an awesome camera. So, here we go. Now, a lot of people have certainly seen this. Shutter speed, ISO, it's a triangle of exposure. Shutter speed, ISO, aperture. Now, I'll actually go into detail on this, like, well, I know how to do that for exposure. But how do you able to think on the fly really quickly when you're taking a shot and you have to register in your brain what's important? You know, what's important? Here's an action scene, then ISO takes priority. So you focus over here. Am I taking a portraiture of like someone that's standing behind like a dump? Well, it'll still turn out to be an awesome picture. Then aperture needs to take priority. Narrow the depth of field, and the background dump, for example, gets blurred out. So we have the triangle of exposures. Like, well, everybody's kind of seen that. Okay, shutter speed, ISO, and aperture. So what else other than that? I mean, once we understand exposure, where do we go from there? My own little thing to add on to that is, well, once you have the set exposure, what else is it that you need to do? I thought up a second triangle, and this is my premise from years when I thought, well, this is only the first stage. You're only talking about exposure. I mean, you could stick the camera in program mode and click the shutter button like a monkey and get the correct exposure most of the time. But, you want to do certain things that take priority, such as, you take an action shot, then shutter takes priority. If low light is an issue, then ISO takes priority. If depth of field is a priority, then aperture takes priority, and everything else falls after that. And once you can actually start to quickly think that way, then you'll have the correct exposure dialed in. But what do you do with the correct exposures? Then we've got another triangle. This is my triangle. It's the EII. Once you have exposure, you have illumination, and you have isolation. Well, what does that mean? Okay, well, when we have set exposure from our other triangle, now we have another triangle. And all of these things take priority. Some things take more priority than others, but what are we talking about isolation? Bokeh, depth of field. What are you going to do as far as taking priority over that? Given a set exposure, say you've got a certain exposure set and you can't reach it, well, you have to add an ND filter, or you're going to have to do something else to get the proper isolation. You need to be thinking about these things all the time. Proper illumination for your specular to give definition between the diffuse and the shadow. Subject illumination. I mean, everybody's thinking about, well, what sort of lens should I buy next? What sort of lens? Instead of buying that next lens, I assume you probably already got enough lenses, is think about buying some wireless triggers and a couple speed lights or a studio strobe and adding some illumination. The best lenses in the world aren't going to matter if they aren't fed enough light to make a beautiful shot. And it's like, well, what do you got? Well, I've got 6 Zeiss lenses and 10 Nicors, and I got all those recommended lenses and I absolutely love them. It's like, yeah, well, what about when you need to feed those lenses light? You could be outdoors in bright sunlight, but say, the sun is to the subject's back, and you want to give the proper illumination. You can't be sitting out there with a reflector. Maybe you can. I doubt you brought a stand and a reflector to hold it, nor do you have an assistant. You have a wireless speed light that you can actually hold out there and take the shot with your other hand. You actually have like a flash cable you can extend out there and add some fill illumination, expose for your background, raise for your subject. That was my simple step in another video as far as what you want to do when you're adding fill illumination. Expose for your background, raise for your subject. You can drop it all into the dirt if you need to, raise for your subject as necessary. And then you have to ask yourself, well, what sort of light? Hard lighting, soft lighting, edge lighting? What is the composition that's in your brain that you immediately need to transfer to the implementation by your hands for that translation between here to the back of the sensor to the SD card or the compact flash card, so that you can concentrate on the composition. If you're sitting here thinking, well, if I need to do this, I need to do that, then the camera and all that friggin' gear, hey, gear's great, great. Well, ultimately it's about forgetting about the gear. Ultimately you have to translate that image to the camera. And once you can forget about the gear and you know intuitively what to do, then that's when the shots really start to pour out. And then you're immediately translating very close, if not perfectly on, what is in your head to what it is you capture. It's like, well, this shot looks like crap, but yeah, if I add some light, then it will look this way. You'll actually start to be able to imagine what the shot will look like without even seeing it. There's a huge difference between taking pictures and making pictures. And other people only see with their eyes. It's like, well, that's a pretty picture. Oh, that's a dump. No, that's a pretty picture, but I can see something that you can't. And that's one of the key defining factors of photography. That it's like, God, I never would have, they always say the same thing. I never would have thought of taking a picture of that. That's because you've only got your eyes to see by. One of the clear defining points of professional photography is not expert in light manipulation and composition, but also being able to see what isn't there, what is potentially there, but not actually there, because you're bringing the light. You've got the gear, but you got to bring the light. Mother Nature is not very cooperative, so once you've got the correct exposure, you need to worry about isolation and illumination. What is it you're isolating? Or you might be isolating nothing. What does the composition call for? Do you know how to isolate it? Instantly, without thinking about it. Or nearly instantly, anyway. Illumination. Gotta be packing the light. Well, I'm going to be out shooting on the streets, at like between 12 noon and 6 p.m., there's going to be plenty of light. Still, no, you still need the light. These are the people you wonder, why are they packing a speed light? It's the middle of the day. It's because they know what they're doing. They know they have to bring the light. You can't rely on ambient lighting. I mean, it makes the difference between a snapshot and a shot that looks like a professional photograph. The person brought the illumination. So EII, everybody knows the triangle of exposure. What about this triangle? EII, exposure, isolation, illumination. Once you can start to make these things intuitive in your head, and like I said, you really need to go out and fail. Go out to a park or a cemetery or someplace that's got a lot of different stuff to shoot. Bring a few lenses, start to fail. It's like, well, you can start chimping on your pictures immediately, see what you did wrong, and start stepping outside of your bounds. Stick it in spot metering, stick it in aperture priority or manual, and start failing. You'll actually come up with about 5% results better than you thought they would be. It's like, wow, this came out looking this way. This is far better than what I saw with my own eyes. That's what you're going to have to start doing. You're going to have to start seeing things that you can't see. And you're going to have to look at a composition and go, well, I see this, but my eyes tell me that if I do this with the aperture, this with the illumination, it will look really fabulous, and boom. Man, that's when you'll start taking the pictures that no one else can see. They'll see it, but they can't see it. It's like, yeah, I see that. No, you're looking at that, but you can't see it. What do you mean I can't see it? That's not a good shot. No, you're looking with your eyeballs, and I'm looking with my eyeballs and my brain. And that is where you're screwing up. Oh, okay, whatever. And then you add the illumination, you add the shallow depth of field, or whatever you want to achieve the compositional perfection that's between your ears, but not seen by your eyes. And that's really something that nobody talks about, and it actually pisses me off. Seeing with the mind's eye. The ancient Indians were famous for talking about the mind's eye. The mind's eye is the most important eyeball in photography. Not these two eyeballs, but this eyeball right here. Oh my God, that makes such sense. Yeah, you're damn right it does. What do you think that speed light's there for? You can't see what the hell your speed light adds. Your speed light is adding what your mind's eye wants to be there in the composition. And you can't see that stuff. You can't see it. You can see it with your mind's eye, but it's not being seen by your eyeballs, your two peepers that are right there, okay? Why does nobody talk about stuff like this? This crap is so important, and nobody talks about it. Nobody. You don't read about it in photography magazines. If there is, I mean, I've not seen it mentioned at any time recently. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you later. Bye.